There was a time when Earth was not home to just one kind of human. Modern humans were not alone. But today, only one human species remains, Homo sapiens. So what happened to the others? And why are we the only ones still here? When we hear the word human, we usually imagine just ourselves, but the truth is far more complex. For hundreds of thousands of years, multiple human species lived on Earth at the same time. Neanderthals in Europe and Western Asia, Denisovans in parts of Asia, Homo floresiensis in Indonesia, and other closely related human groups discovered through fossils. They were not primitive animals. They were humans who made tools, used fire, and adapted to their environments in remarkable ways. And yet, over time, they disappeared. Neanderthals were strong, heavily built humans adapted to Ice Age Europe. They hunted large animals and survived extreme cold conditions. Denisovans are known mostly through DNA evidence, but research shows they lived across parts of Asia and contributed genetically to modern populations. Homo floresiensis, sometimes called the Hobbit, was a small-bodied human species that survived on an isolated island environment. Each species was adapted to its own world, but none of them survived to the present day. Around 60,000 to 70,000 years ago, modern humans began expanding out of Africa. As Homo sapiens entered Europe and Asia, they encountered other human species. What followed was not a single event, but thousands of years of interaction. Sometimes they competed for resources, sometimes they coexisted, and sometimes they interbred. Genetic studies confirm that many humans today carry small amounts of Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA, meaning these species did not disappear completely. A part of them continues to live within us. The answer is not simple strength. In fact, Neanderthals were physically stronger and well adapted to harsh climates. The key difference was flexibility, highly adaptable behavior, advanced symbolic language, strong long-distance social networks, the ability to share knowledge across generations and groups. This allowed Homo sapiens to respond faster to environmental changes and survive in many different ecosystems. Scientists today agree there was no single reason for extinction. Rapid climate changes during the Ice Age, small, isolated populations of other human species, competition for food and territory, interbreeding with expanding Homo sapiens groups. Over thousands of years, these pressures gradually reduced their populations until they disappeared as distinct species. We are not entirely separate from them. Non-African populations carry a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA, and some populations in Asia carry Denisovan ancestry. This means the story of human evolution is not just extinction, it is also integration. So why are we the only humans left on Earth? Because survival was never about being the strongest. It was about adaptability, cooperation, and timing. Other human species did not vanish overnight.
Slowly faded away as environments changed, populations shifted, and groups merged. And in a deeper sense, they did not fully disappear. They became part of us. The real mystery is not just why they are gone, but how many different versions of humanity once existed and how close we came to becoming just another lost branch of the human story. You were not the only human that ever existed. You are the last living chapter of a much bigger human family tree. There was a time when Earth was not home to just one kind of human. We were not alone. But today, only one of us remains. Homo sapiens. So what happened to the others, and why are we the only ones still standing? When we hear the word human, we usually picture just ourselves, one species, one story. But the truth is far more complex. For hundreds of thousands of years, multiple human species lived on this planet at the same time. Neanderthals across Europe and Western Asia, Denisovans in parts of Asia, Homo floresiensis on a remote island in Indonesia, and several other closely related groups we've only recently uncovered through fossils. They weren't primitive animals. They were humans who made tools, controlled fire, and adapted to some of the harshest environments on Earth. And yet, one by one, over thousands of years, they disappeared. Except one. Neanderthals were strong, heavily built humans, perfectly adapted to the freezing landscapes of Ice Age Europe. They hunted large animals, survived brutal winters, and in some ways were physically tougher than us. Denisovans remain one of the biggest mysteries in human history. We know them mostly through DNA rather than fossils, but the evidence shows they once thrived across parts of Asia and quietly left their genetic mark on people alive today. And then there was Homo floresiensis, nicknamed the Hobbit, a small-bodied human species that survived for thousands of years in isolation on a single Indonesian island. Each of them was shaped by their own world. Each had found a way to survive, but none of them made it to the present day. Around 60 to 70,000 years ago, modern humans began expanding out of Africa. As Homo sapiens moved into Europe and Asia, they didn't arrive into empty land. They walked straight into the territory of other human species who had already been living there for thousands of years. What followed wasn't a single dramatic event. It was thousands of years of overlapping lives. Sometimes they competed for the same land, the same food, the same shelter. Sometimes they coexisted, living in parallel for generations. And sometimes they interbred. Genetic studies confirm that many people alive today carry small traces of Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA, which means something remarkable. These species never fully vanished. A part of them is still walking around, inside us. So why are we the ones who made it? The answer isn't simply strength. In fact, Neanderthals were stronger than us and just as well adapted to harsh, freezing climates. The real difference was flexibility. Modern humans developed something rare, the ability to adapt quickly to new environments, build complex symbolic language, and form social networks that stretched far beyond a single small group. We didn't just survive in one place, we shared knowledge across generations, traded across long distances, and built trust among strangers, something no other human species appears to have done at the same scale. That difference allowed us to respond faster when the world around us changed. And the world changed constantly. Here's something important. Scientists today agree there was no single reason these species disappeared. It wasn't one event. It was a slow convergence of pressures. Rapid climate shifts during the Ice Age made its survival harder for species tied to specific environments. Smaller, more isolated populations were more vulnerable to disease and sudden environmental shocks. Competition for food and territory intensified as Homo sapiens expanded into new regions, and gradual interbreeding meant that some of these species didn't vanish, they were slowly absorbed into ours. Over thousands of years, these forces combined until each of these species, one by one, ceased to exist as something distinct. Which brings us to one of the most fascinating discoveries in modern genetics. We are not entirely separate from them. Non-African populations today carry small percentages of Neanderthal DNA. Some populations across Asia and the Pacific carry traces of Denisovan ancestry. This means the story of human evolution was never just a story of extinction, it was also a story of integration.